The unearthed door. The morning sun rose slowly over the ancient city of Jerusalem, spreading golden light across domes, towers, and stone alleys that had stood for thousands of years. The air was still cool, filled with the faint smell of earth and bread from nearby bakeries. Beneath this peaceful morning, a discovery waited, one that would change everything people thought they knew about this sacred city. Layla Rahman adjusted her headlamp and wiped the dust from her hands as she looked down into the excavation pit. She was an archaeologist working under the city's Christian quarter, a maze of narrow streets and old courtyards. Her team had been clearing what they believed was an old cistern, something ordinary and expected. But as the dig progressed, Layla felt a quiet pull, an instinct telling her there was something deeper hidden below. Her father had once told her that Jerusalem hides its truths like a heart buried beneath layers of time. Layla had followed his path, learning how to read the whispers of old stones, how to sense the difference between a natural crack and the line left by a mason's chisel. That morning, her instincts proved right. At the base of the trench, she saw it, a thin, straight line running through the limestone, too perfect to be natural. "Rafi, bring me the brushes," she called to her assistant. Her voice calm but steady with excitement, Rafi climbed down with care. Together they brushed away the soil, inch by inch, until a smooth, dark surface appeared. It was not limestone but basalt, hard and cold to the touch. The slab was rectangular, its edges fitted so tightly that no air could pass between them. Across its face, faint carvings formed a spiral, and in the center of that spiral were tiny symbols. 2 clasped hands, a 12-pointed star, and a set of small dots beneath a straight line. Layla had seen many scripts in her career, but these markings belonged to none she recognized. She leaned closer. "This isn't just a door," she whispered. "It's a seal." The rest of the team gathered around, their lights flashing across the carvings. The slab seemed to drink in the light rather than reflect it. Mariam, the site's conservator, ran her finger near the edge but did not touch. "It looks ancient. Maybe even older than the Roman levels," Layla nodded. "Older, maybe by centuries." For hours they worked in silence, recording every detail, sketching the lines, measuring the angles. The door was smaller than expected, less than a meter wide, but its craftsmanship was precise, deliberate. When they finally loosened the outer frame, a faint breath of cold air escaped from behind the stone. It carried with it the scent of metal and something else, something old and untouched, like the air of a forgotten tomb. "Careful," Layla warned as Rafi and another worker pried at the edge with small crowbars. The basalt resisted at first, then shifted with a deep groan that echoed off the walls. When it moved, the sound was like a sigh escaping from the earth itself. Slowly, the slab tilted inward, revealing a dark space beyond. The team shone their flashlights through the opening. The beam caught a narrow staircase descending into blackness. The steps were smooth, worn by age, spiraling down into a hollow silence. On the first landing lay a mosaic, tiny pieces of colored stone, arranged in the pattern of olive leaves, encircling an 8-pointed star. In its center was a small slab, engraved with strange letters that seemed to belong to no single alphabet. It was as if several ancient languages had fused together into something lost to time. Mariam crouched to examine the inscriptions. "Phoenician lines," she murmured. "But the structure, it looks almost Egyptian, maybe Coptic." Layla studied the markings. "It's mixed. Like a code shared between civilizations." They took photographs, careful not to disturb anything. Every piece of evidence mattered. Still, Layla could not shake the feeling that the chamber was not meant to be opened casually. The carvings, the spiral, the sealed air, all of it suggested purpose. Someone long ago had wanted to hide whatever lay below, and had done so with precision and intent. By evening, the team sealed the entrance again. They would need official permission to continue. Layla wrote her report using careful, neutral language. "Subterranean chamber discovered under early modern courtyard. Presence of ancient inscriptions. Further excavation pending approval." She knew those words were a formality, but her heart raced with the weight of what they had found. That night, back in her small apartment overlooking the old city, she could not sleep. She replayed the discovery over and over in her mind, the spiral, the cold air, the unrecognizable writing. Her father's old journals rested on her desk, filled with sketches of forgotten ruins. She opened one and found a note he had written years ago. There is a door beneath Jerusalem that does not lead to the past, but to what came before memory. Layla closed her eyes. Could it be the same door he had written about? Or was it only coincidence? She wasn't sure. But something deep inside told her that what they had uncovered was far greater than an archaeological find. It was a key to a part of human history erased from every record. 2 days later, 2 men arrived at the site. One wore a badge from the Directorate of Antiquities. The other introduced himself as Dr. Samuel Ben-Ami from the Institute for Historical Studies. His voice was calm, polite, but his eyes searched the site with intense focus. He examined the basalt slab, the sketches, the photos. When he spoke, his words carried both interest and caution. "You have found something extraordinary," Samuel said quietly, "but you must proceed carefully. If what lies beneath connects to certain ancient claims, this discovery could have consequences beyond archaeology." Layla frowned. "Consequences?" "Jerusalem's history is not just history," he replied. "It is faith, identity, and power. Every stone here belongs to someone's story." She understood what he meant. The city was a puzzle of beliefs, each piece claimed by those who walked above it. A single discovery could ignite arguments that stretched across centuries. That evening, Layla stayed behind as the others left. The courtyard was silent, lit only by her headlamp and the fading sunset. She knelt by the basalt slab and pressed her palm gently against its surface. It felt colder than before. The carvings caught the dying light, and for a moment she thought she saw the faint outline of the 12-pointed star glowing softly beneath the dust. She whispered to herself, "What are you hiding?" The stone gave no answer, but somewhere deep below, the air shifted again, soft, deliberate, like something breathing in its sleep. Layla rose and looked toward the horizon, where the city lights flickered against the dark sky. Beneath her feet lay secrets untouched for thousands of years, secrets that could change everything she had ever learned about this place. And she had just begun to open the door. The chamber below, 3 days passed before the Directorate granted permission for a controlled descent into the hidden chamber. The approval came with strict conditions. The team was to document every step, disturb nothing without photographic and written records, and submit daily reports to both the Institute and the local Heritage Council. For Layla, it felt less like permission and more like surveillance, but she accepted it. The discovery mattered more than her frustration. By dawn, the team was ready. Rafi checked the ropes and oxygen monitors, while Mariam adjusted the light cables that would stretch down the stairwell. Layla stood at the edge of the opening, her heart pounding as she watched the shadows vanish into the depths below. The basalt door had been carefully lifted, revealing the spiral staircase again. From above, it looked endless, as if it descended straight into the heart of the earth. Layla placed her hand on the first step. It was smooth and cold, polished by ancient hands. Each step curved downward with perfect precision. The walls were lined with alternating layers of limestone and dark basalt, forming a pattern that glimmered faintly when the light touched it. It was not random construction. It was artistry. As they descended, the air grew cooler. Moisture dripped from the ceiling, echoing faintly through the passage. The team moved slowly, scanning the walls for inscriptions. On one section, Mariam paused and brushed away dirt to reveal a mural, faded but still visible. It showed a circle of 12 figures standing beneath a star with 12 rays, each holding an object shaped like a scroll. The figures were different in clothing and features, suggesting they came from many lands. "What do you think it means?" Rafi asked quietly. Layla examined it with her flashlight. It might represent a council, perhaps a group of scholars or priests from different civilizations. Look at their robes. Egyptian, Babylonian, Hebrew, even early Greek. Whoever created this knew of many cultures. She photographed the mural from several angles, noting every symbol. Beneath the figures were lines of writing, faint but legible. Some characters resembled Phoenician script, others Aramaic, and some appeared entirely unknown. It was a mix of languages from different empires that had risen and fallen over centuries. They continued downward until the staircase opened into a circular chamber. The space was wider than they expected, large enough to hold a small house. The ceiling rose into a dome, carved from a single piece of rock, decorated with constellations etched in gold leaf. In the center stood a stone table, perfectly rectangular, with strange symbols carved into its edges. On the table lay a single object. It was a box made of bronze and covered in green patina. Its lid bore the same spiral pattern as the basalt door above, and at the center was the 12-pointed star. Layla approached slowly, every step echoing in the silence. She could feel the weight of history pressing around her. The others watched in silence as she knelt before the table. Her flashlight revealed faint traces of wax on the box's corners, as if it had once been sealed shut. "This hasn't been touched in thousands of years," she murmured. Mariam leaned closer. "We should take samples before opening it," Layla nodded. Together, they swabbed the corners and placed fragments into small vials. Rafi filmed every moment. Then, with careful hands, Layla slid a thin tool beneath the lid and gently lifted. The bronze creaked, releasing a soft sigh of trapped air. Inside, wrapped in layers of aged linen, lay several scrolls and a small metal tablet covered in inscriptions. The linen was brittle, almost disintegrating at a touch. Mariam used special tweezers to remove one scroll and place it in a preservation box. The metal tablet, however, was solid and heavy. Its surface was engraved with a pattern of circles connected by lines, resembling a star map. At its center was an inscription that caught Layla's breath. "It's a date," she said softly. "But it doesn't match any known calendar. It references a year before the earliest recorded civilizations. Samuel Ben Ami arrived at the site later that afternoon, summoned by Layla's urgent message. When he saw the chamber, his eyes widened in disbelief. "This can't be real," he whispered. "If this map corresponds to the constellations, it predates the known use of stellar navigation by at least 2,000 years. Layla handed him a copy of the inscriptions. "Look at the language. It's mixed, part Proto-Semitic, part something else." Samuel studied it carefully. "It's as if several ancient cultures collaborated to create this. But that shouldn't be possible. These civilizations never existed at the same time." Rafi, listening nearby, frowned. "Then what are we looking at? A myth carved into stone?" Samuel shook his head. "No, a message left for those who would come later." "This was meant to be found." Layla glanced back at the staircase. "But why hide it so deep?" "Perhaps to protect it," Samuel said. "Or to protect us from what it reveals." The team decided to secure the site overnight. They sealed the chamber and posted guards outside the courtyard. Only a few officials knew of the discovery. Yet somehow, rumors had already started spreading across the city. People whispered that something ancient had been unearthed, something that could rewrite history. That night, Layla returned to her apartment exhausted but unable to rest. She placed her notes on the table and stared at the sketches of the mural and the bronze box. Every pattern, every symbol seemed connected. The 12 figures, the 12-pointed star, the map on the metal tablet, all pointed toward a knowledge older than any recorded scripture or empire. At midnight, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. The text read, "Do not open what you do not understand." Some doors were sealed for a reason. Layla stared at the message, her heart pounding. She went to the window and looked out at the city. The domes and towers glowed softly under the moonlight. Beneath them, thousands of years of history slept in silence. But she knew that silence was breaking. Somewhere below the courtyard, beyond the sealed chamber, something ancient had awakened. And though she did not yet know what it was, she could feel it, alive, waiting, and ready to change everything the world thought it knew about Jerusalem, the message of the ancients. The following morning, the sun rose over Jerusalem in shades of gold and rose. The streets were alive with the hum of life, but deep within the city a silence lingered that no one could hear except those who had descended beneath it. Layla arrived at the excavation site earlier than anyone else. The guards nodded as she entered the courtyard, her boots crunching softly on the stone floor. The air was cool and heavy, carrying the faint scent of dust and metal. She descended the spiral staircase once more, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The bronze box and its contents were now stored in the lab above ground, sealed and protected. But Layla wanted to study the chamber itself. Something about the arrangement of symbols, the murals, and the way the light seemed to gather near the center of the dome called to her. It felt as if the chamber was trying to speak. When Mariam arrived, she found Layla tracing the carvings on the wall with the light from her lamp. "You haven't slept again," Mariam said softly. "I couldn't," Layla admitted. "Look at these constellations. They're not random. They form a sequence, almost like coordinates." Mariam adjusted her glasses and studied the gold inlays that decorated the dome. The symbols resembled familiar star patterns, but were slightly altered, as if the sky itself had shifted since they were carved. "You think they map something?" she asked. "I think they tell a story," Layla said. "A story older than anything we know." By noon, Samuel arrived with fresh documents from the Institute. The team gathered around a table in the courtyard as he unfolded large photographs of the metal tablet they had recovered. The engravings were now digitally enhanced, and the clarity was stunning. The lines connected in precise geometric patterns, forming a spiral that mirrored the carvings on the basalt door and the bronze box. In the center was a small cluster of symbols that Samuel pointed to with his pen. "This," he said, "is not writing. It's a formula, a mathematical sequence that matches the alignment of certain stars thousands of years ago." Layla leaned forward. "You're saying it's a date in the sky?" "Exactly," Samuel replied. "And when we match this pattern to the known precession of the constellations, it points to a time nearly 12,000 years before the first recorded civilizations." The courtyard fell silent. Even the sound of distant city life seemed to fade. Mariam broke the silence first. "That would mean this chamber was built before the pyramids, before Mesopotamia, before written language itself." Samuel nodded. "If these calculations are correct, then everything we know about the origins of knowledge and architecture changes." Layla felt her pulse quicken. Her father's old notes came back to her, the ones that spoke of an ancient alliance of scholars and builders who preserved wisdom through ages of chaos. He had called it the Covenant of 12, a legend dismissed by most historians as myth. But the 12 figures on the mural, the 12-pointed star, the pattern of constellations, it all connected. Later that evening, the team returned underground to continue their work. Using ultraviolet light, they examined the chamber's floor and found faint markings invisible to the naked eye. When illuminated, the symbols formed a circular pattern that radiated outward from the stone table. Each spoke of the circle pointed to a specific constellation. In the very center, where the bronze box had rested, was a single inscription written in ancient Phoenician. Layla read it aloud. "Those who remember the beginning will guard the end." The words sent a chill through everyone present. It was a message, perhaps a warning, left by those who had built this place. That night, as rain fell softly over Jerusalem, Layla and Samuel met in her apartment to review the data. The table was covered in photographs, sketches, and translations. The more they studied, the clearer it became that the chamber was not a tomb or a temple, but a vault of knowledge. "These builders," Samuel said, pointing at one of the photographs, "they must have been astronomers, mathematicians, philosophers. They recorded the movement of stars with precision that rivals our modern instruments. How did they do that 12,000 years ago?" Layla rubbed her eyes, exhausted yet exhilarated. Maybe they weren't just studying the sky. Maybe they were following something, tracking a change, a cycle. Samuel looked up.
A cycle of what?
Layla hesitated. Perhaps of the earth itself. Civilizations rise and fall, but maybe the ancients knew something about what causes it. Something we've forgotten. A knock interrupted them. It was Rafi, looking uneasy. He held his phone out. "You need to see this," he said. On the screen was a news article from a local outlet. The headline read, "Secret discovery beneath Jerusalem sparks controversy among scholars." Someone had leaked information about the excavation. The article mentioned an underground structure, strange inscriptions, and possible implications for religious history. Though no names were mentioned, the description left no doubt. It was their site. Layla's chest tightened. "How did this get out?" Rafi shook his head. "No idea, but there are already protesters near the directorate. Some groups think we're trying to uncover something sacred." Samuel frowned deeply. "This is exactly what I feared. Once this becomes public, every faction will claim it belongs to them. They won't care about the science or the truth." Layla stood and began pacing. "We can't stop now. If we back down, others will take over, and they'll twist this discovery into whatever suits their beliefs." Samuel nodded slowly. "Then we finish what we started. But we must be careful. If the wrong people think this discovery changes their story, they'll try to silence us." The next morning, the team found the entrance surrounded by reporters and officials. The directorate had ordered a temporary halt to the dig, citing safety and cultural sensitivity. Yet Layla knew it was more than that. Someone wanted to control the narrative before the truth emerged. While the others argued with the authorities, Layla slipped into the chamber alone. The air was thick and still, the silence almost alive. She walked to the center of the room and looked up at the dome. A thin beam of sunlight had found its way through a small crack above, striking the very spot where the bronze box had once rested. The light reflected off the gold inlays and spread across the carvings like a living thing. In that moment, she saw it. The beam illuminated the 12 figures on the mural, and their shadows aligned perfectly with the star symbols on the dome. It was a code hidden in light, a celestial calendar meant to activate only when the sun stood in a specific position. She realized the chamber was more than a tomb or archive. It was a clock, an ancient mechanism tracking something far greater than time. Her heart raced as she took photos and notes, her mind spinning with possibilities. Whatever the ancients had known, they had left a message that was meant to be understood only when humanity was ready to see it again. When she returned to the surface, the courtyard was filled with noise. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and officials barked orders. Layla stood still for a moment, staring at the chaos around her. Beneath their feet lay the truth. Calm, patient, and waiting, she whispered to herself, "The past isn't buried. It's waiting for us to listen." What she did not know was that beneath the chamber, beyond the sealed wall behind the mural, something else still waited. The ancients had built more than one level, and what lay below would reveal why they had hidden their knowledge and what they had feared might come again. The awakening. Below that night, the wind howled over the city of Jerusalem, carrying with it a chill that crept into every corner of the ancient streets. Layla sat in her office, surrounded by maps and fragments of translation scattered across her desk. Her eyes were tired, but her mind refused to rest. The light code she had discovered in the chamber still played in her thoughts, like a puzzle waiting for its final piece. She knew the meaning was close, yet something deeper was hidden beyond what she had already seen. The sound of her phone broke the silence. It was Rafi calling in a hushed, urgent tone. He told her to come to the site immediately, but not to use the main entrance. Within minutes, Layla was on her way, the streets nearly empty as the storm rolled over the city. When she arrived, she found Rafi waiting by a side gate, his flashlight flickering in the wind. Without a word, he led her inside and down the stone stairs into the dark chamber below. When they reached the bottom, Layla saw Samuel and Mariam already there, their faces pale in the dim light. Samuel held a small scanner in his hand, its screen pulsing with faint blue lines. "We found something behind the wall," he said. "A hollow space bigger than we thought." "There's another chamber below this one." Layla's heart began to pound. The mural of the 12 figures stood before them, silent and eternal. They had always believed it marked the end of the passage, but now she understood it was a door. The alignment of the sunlight earlier had revealed the exact position of a hidden lock disguised among the carvings. Using small chisels and care, they began clearing the thin layer of stone. As the final piece cracked, a soft rush of stale air escaped from behind the wall. The temperature dropped and a deep echo rolled through the tunnel. They shined their flashlights through the opening, revealing a narrow staircase carved from the same black basalt, descending into darkness. Layla hesitated only for a moment before stepping inside. The stairs were steep and uneven, leading to a vast chamber far below. When her feet finally touched the floor, she realized they were standing in what seemed like a vast circular hall. The ceiling was lost in shadow, and the walls were covered with inscriptions that glowed faintly when touched by light. At the center stood a massive stone, a platform surrounded by 12 pillars, each carved with intricate designs representing the same constellations from above. On the floor between the pillars ran a continuous line of script, forming a perfect ring. It was older than anything they had ever seen, yet perfectly preserved. Mariam whispered in awe. "This isn't just another room. It's a vault, a place of record." Layla approached the central platform and noticed an indentation, shaped like the bronze box they had found earlier. Slowly, she placed the box back into the hollow, and as soon as it touched the surface, a low vibration filled the air. The pillars began to emit a faint hum, and the inscriptions along the walls glimmered like fireflies awakening after thousands of years. The symbols on the bronze box shifted before their eyes, rearranging themselves into new patterns. The chamber responded as if alive, and from the darkness above, a voice echoed not as sound, but as a resonance within their minds. It was not in any language they knew, yet they understood it perfectly. The keepers of knowledge guard the cycle of light and shadow. When the heavens return to their place, the hidden will rise again. The message repeated once, then faded into silence. Samuel fell to his knees, overwhelmed by what they had heard. Rafi crossed himself instinctively, his hands shaking. Mariam looked to Layla, who stood frozen, her eyes wide, with both awe and fear. "What does it mean?" Mariam whispered. Layla's voice was soft but steady. "It means this wasn't just a record of the past. It's a warning for the future." They spent hours studying the new markings that appeared after the activation. The star patterns now aligned with the present-day constellations, showing that the builders had predicted an astronomical cycle repeating every 12,000 years. At the end of each cycle, the Earth faced a great upheaval, fire flood, or silence, depending on the stars' alignment. The ancients had survived one such catastrophe and built this vault to preserve their knowledge before the world was renewed. When dawn approached, Layla and the team returned to the surface exhausted but changed. The world above felt different, quieter, heavier with meaning. The protests and reporters were gone, the storm had cleared, leaving the city bathed in pale morning light. Yet Layla sensed that something within the earth had shifted. Over the following days, the Directorate sealed the site, entirely claiming it a matter of national security. The government ordered all research documents confiscated and communication between the team restricted. But Layla had made copies of everything, the scans, the translations, the recordings. She knew the truth could not be buried again. One evening, as she sat by her window overlooking the old city, she opened her father's old journal once more. On the last page, she noticed a line she had never seen before, faintly written in the margin. "When the stars return to their first place, the keepers will awaken, and the city of peace will tremble once more." She looked out at the golden dome of the rock, gleaming under the sunset, its light reflecting across the ancient stones. Her mind echoed with the message from below the earth. The ancients had built Jerusalem upon a place of power, not for conquest or worship, but as a guardian of memory. The city was more than sacred land. It was a vessel holding the balance between destruction and renewal. As the first stars appeared in the sky, Layla whispered a silent promise. "We will not let your warning be forgotten." Months passed, but the mystery only deepened. Strange readings of electromagnetic energy began to appear beneath the old quarter of the city. Several nights in a row, faint tremors were felt near the excavation site, though no official explanation was given. Scholars whispered about an awakening, something ancient stirring beneath the ground. Layla continued her research in secret, sending encrypted reports to trusted historians around the world. Each fragment she uncovered pointed to the same truth: the ancients had known that every rise of civilization was followed by a fall, and that those who remembered could guide the next beginning. Night, as she walked through the quiet streets, she paused near the entrance to the sealed site. The wind carried the faintest sound from below, not a rumble or a voice, but a vibration, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. She smiled faintly and whispered to the darkness, "I hear you." Then she turned and walked away, her steps steady, her spirit filled with purpose. Beneath her feet, the vault of the ancients slept once more, but not forgotten. It waited, as it always had, for the next generation of seekers to find its truth and remember what the world had once known before it was lost to time. Jerusalem stood silent above, holding within its stones the secret of beginnings and endings, the promise that knowledge would endure even when all else faded. And somewhere in that endless circle of time, the hidden would rise again, just as the stars had foretold.